What's up, jerks?
Manning retired.
Sure.
Both.
I like kickers.
Put him on the board. Hausch Mazzoli. Got it. Championship.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Fantasy Nerds. And we just can't seem to keep one crew together for more than a week. I'm Jason Jarvie. I'm back again. But my brother is not here. He is doing some other stuff. But we have another guy who's been with us. It's Phil Pamonte, or as
Paco likes to refer to me as the Thriller.
And I think Phil may have some beef with John the Doc Macaroon, the phone, in his league that he runs on him.
Shady.
What? There's an issue?
Shady.
I'm just sitting here enjoying my dates. What the hell's going on?
I know the Doc. He thinks that he's cornered the ideal on just being a fantasy football general manager. He's the Jerry Jones of general manager. Actually, no, he's the Martha Firestone Ford of fantasy football. He just sits back, lets other people draft his team, and then he reaps the rewards.
I'm tired of hearing about, I don't have time to study and draft my own team. Dude, I'm working. I can find time to make time for my family. I go to the gym. I do everything. I have extracurriculars, too. I drafted 4 teams all by my lonesome. So what's your issue, sir?
All I can say
Doc.
is full-time psychologist, running a podcast network, trying to get sponsors for the podcast, trying to add shows, trying to do other things as well. I'm a busy guy. And at the same time, I watch other sports besides football. Baseball playoffs are going on. So I'm just a busy dude, man. I'm sorry. I just couldn't do it. And actually this year, it presented itself this way because of early drafts. I go to every draft, but if the rule is, and I realize it too, you can't draft before the 3rd preseason game. This year, and the both drafts were before that. Hey, man, that's what happened.
Doc, I'm going to cut you off right there. I've walked through forests less shady than you are. That's all I'm going to say.
And it's got to be tough. And I know, I'm in 5 leagues. I drafted all mine.
Yeah.
I'd have to say that I'm probably a little bit more invested this year. Though I'm in one league, I'm 0-5, and I would be less invested in it if it wasn't the league that I've been in for 16 years.
Yeah, that makes it difficult. There's always that one league where you've got so much time in that no matter what the cost or whatever, it gets more to be about the bragging rights than the money. So if you're struggling in that league, it makes it very, very frustrating, to say the least.
My man, Phil, why are you worrying about my general manager skills when you're sitting over there at 1-4?
I told you, when I was on the podcast a few weeks ago, I told you that I did not like that team. I knew I was in trouble, but fortunately through a couple moves, I think I'm poised to make a backdoor run and sneak into the playoffs in like the 5 or 6 spot.
So tell us about the move that you just made, that hopefully your 1-4 team can progress to get into the playoffs.
Well, my buddy actually threw this at me. I was sort of bummed that I had to do this, but it's going to work in my favor. I was offered James, Arian Foster, Antonio Gates, and Brandon Cooks, and I had to give up Jeremy Hill and James Jones, and I had to drop Niall Davis. Now, this happened 2 weeks ago, so picking up Foster and Gates, once Foster's always going to be on the injury report, so I see he's questionable for this week, but
he's going to play.
Yeah.
His snaps have gone up every week since he's come back. Yeah. So, he was on 30 snaps the first week, came back. He had like 45.
42. Yeah. And he played pretty well too against Indy. And then I was able to package that after I got Cooks because my wide receiver, I just picked up Willie Snead, and I think the way Willie Snead's been playing, he's sort of been like, there's sort of that breakout here and there. He's looked a lot better than Cooks overall. So I took Cooks and then I shipped him for Chris Ivory. So it's looking like if I can move one of my other running backs, if I could pick up another wide receiver with Gates coming off suspension and going basically bananas, like he added some talent, much needed talent to San Diego. Their running games looked to say the most, and Keenan Allen's been taking been getting all the targets, but the way Gates stepped up Monday night it made me pretty happy. So.
Yeah, I love Gates' pick. In one of the leagues, I actually took a bunch of suspended players, and I had Gates and both Martavis Bryant. Bryant hasn't paid off yet, but Gates was huge for me last week. I immediately plugged him in, and he was great. He did great for me as well on my show on Detroit Sports 105.1. We do a FanDuel segment.
Okay.
And I put Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates in.
Comboed them up.
Yep, and I finished, I think, in the top 150 out of 17,000. So
that's
made
sweet.
$20, which we're not doing it for the money. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
But it's really good. I think Gates he's starting up exactly where he left off. He found the fountain of youth last year, and I think he's just a great option, and especially with Stevie Johnson being hurt. It's going to be good for him.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? There's always a security blanket, just like you can sort of compare him to like Greg Olsen for Cam, because Cam's really, his wide receiving core is just decimated. So Greg Olsen pays huge dividends for him down there. So Gates, I always worried about Gates once you get later on in the season because he seems to fade off. But I wonder if this time off is going to help him to be able to finish strong when you need him if you're making your your run towards the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. And the only reason that we're talking about this is because both of us we're in pretty deep water in this point in our main leagues. You're 1-4.
Yeah,
I'm 0-5, and going into week 6, it's very tough to recover. I mean, if you're 0-5 at this point, you're gonna have to play almost perfect fantasy football going forward.
Yeah, for the rest of the season.
Most leagues, they have 6 teams make the playoffs, and the lowest that you're gonna get in with is 6-7.
Yeah. So,
and I mean, even if you are at 6-7, there's probably other teams at 6-7, and then you gotta hope that you win the tiebreaker.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, it's like you get maybe 1-2 losses at most.
Yeah, you have 8 games left right now. And if you're 0-5, you have to at least go 6-2 just to make it to 6-7.
Yeah, I mean, and you're still got to hope in that situation too. So
now, what I will say, and it's good news for me, is that last year in my main league, we had 2 teams make it at 6-7, and both of those 2 teams made it to the championship.
Oh, really? See, it's all if you can sneak in, you just need to sneak in. You don't want to finish, and you're not worried about finishing in first unless there's like bonus money for like spots or points or whatever. You just want to get into the playoffs. If you can get into the playoffs and you catch the right matchups, those whatever your weeks may be, 14, 15, 16, or 15, 16, 17. If you can get in, you just want to be able to do damage, and that's basically all it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it really comes down to luck. Is you got to hope that the guys on your team can turn it around, and really you have 2 choices at this point. Either you have a good team. Where my team, where I'm 0-5, I'm struggling because I have good players. Andrew Luck, if you draft him,
yeah.
You're assuming that he's going to do good. Jeremy Hill, you're assuming he's going to be good. Calvin Johnson. Melvin Gordon, Mike Evans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's tough because you have good players, but there's not much value you can get for them. You can't trade Andrew Luck and expect to get the type of value you're looking for. Or Jeremy Hill. I mean, you got really good value for him.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to really try and package something for him. So, I mean, you can either stand pat and hope that your team
turns around.
Yeah. Or you're going to have to work some magic on the waiver wire or through trade.
Yeah, because that's exactly how I had Andrew Luck, Jeremy Hill, and T.Y. Hilton, and so basically we're along the same lines except for you having Calvin. So fortunately, Jeremy Hill just had that 3 touchdown week, which everybody was sort of like, oh, is he coming back? And my friend made me the trade offer the perfect time. I was ready to ship him for basically whatever, because I saw how I see how things are going to go. Andy Dalton, I think, is playing just superb football right now. So it was sort of a blessing in disguise that my buddy approached me with the trade.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, and it's all about luck. So if you're looking at the waiver wire, and I'm going to try and help other people out here as well. If you're looking for people, you're gonna hopefully you have already put in waivers for these guys because this is coming out on Friday.
Yeah.
And the good leagues, all these guys should be gone.
Should be gone.
But these are the names that you should have been looking for this week. With Jamal Charles going down, Charkandrick West.
Yeah.
Or now Davis. I think they're saying West is going to be the main guy. But, I mean, what do you think that split's going to be?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's like you have to have Niall Davis now automatically because you don't know. You haven't seen them in tandem yet. So, depending on how this game plays out on Sunday, if one of them steps up and hits a home run, they're probably going to win the job because that's what Jamal Charles did. Jamal Charles, held that backfield down all by himself. So, Andy Reid's probably going to feel more comfortable with being able to roll with one guy. The other one will probably just come in and spell him. So, I mean, I would think that you still have to pick Davis up as well, even though they're saying right now that West is going to be the lead back.
Yeah, I definitely see West as the main guy, and Davis kind of keeps his similar role because he's more useful as a pass catching running back. If anything, he may be more value in a PPR league.
Yeah,
because when Charles was there, he could do everything. He was the back. He really was probably the most valuable back.
Yeah.
Because he ran it and he caught the ball. So yeah, have both guys, and Davis may surprise you some weeks. Another guy, you said you picked him up, Willie Snead from New Orleans. Over the last 4 games, he has 30 targets for 21 catches.
And he's, like you said, he had 140 yards. Has he got to the end zone yet?
I think he had a touchdown last week.
Okay. He's another guy, and I keep hearing a lot about, I don't know about you, but the running back situation in Baltimore right now is sort of dicey. So I went and picked up in 3 leagues. I picked up Javarius Allen.
Yeah, I think it's a very good pickup because the Lorenzo Talafiero, they just placed him on IR.
Okay.
With Forsett being banged up. I mean, he may not be a great play, but if he's going to be starting or getting the majority of the carries, he might be, if you're in a bad situation like me where I'm starting Theo Riddick, it might not be that bad.
Yeah, like you said, you could probably go ahead and pick him up and plug him in for Riddick because, I mean, if he's going to be getting the majority of the carries, they like to run the ball. You know, Flacco's very, very shaky. He doesn't always – he's got those games where he puts up maybe 8-10 points, and then he's got the games where he puts up 25 or something. So you can sort of count on their running game to produce some points for you.
Now, to stick in on the Baltimore Ravens, I think a guy that might have a little bit of worth for just the next week or two is Kamar Aiken.
Yeah.
He's been pretty solid, and he's a decent deep threat. I know he's caught at least 1 touchdown, but I think his value just completely plummets, though, when Steve Smith comes back.
Yeah, like you said, the quarterbacks seem to favor. There's always one safety blanket for everybody, and Steve Smith took that role when Anquan Bolden left to go to San Francisco. So Flacco always seems a little more comfortable, sort of targeting in on one guy. Even when Torrey Smith was with them, Torrey Smith was just their home run threat. He never was their possession receiver. So I would agree that Aiken's a good play for right now, but once Steve Smith's back to 100%, he definitely takes a little bit of a hit.
Yeah, I agree. I've been high on, and I might be going crazy, but the Jacksonville passing offense. I mean, Bortles definitely needs to be owned in most leagues, and Allen Robinson is probably owned already.
Yeah,
but Allen Hurns. He's huge. You got to own him. I know he's banged up a little bit, but that's a guy that going forward, I mean, Jacksonville's going to be out of a lot of games, and it's gonna be garbage time touchdowns, garbage time yards.
Yeah, but I mean, that's where all these games get won, though. Is, I mean, their running game, Yeldon's banged up, so now it's going to be who are they starting again? Is it Toby Gerhart? So
I think it might be the Doc. I think that he might be going down to Jacksonville.
John, are you going to get into the game, sir? Are you gonna be down there pounding the rock for the Jaguars or what?
Man, I love Blake Bortles, but then what happened to his shoulder? I totally missed it. I seen questionable that he injured himself. I'm like, I actually have gotten so high on Bortles. I did question this week starting Bortles or Andrew Luck.
Bortles.
It's Bortles. It's not right now.
Well, some would say the philosophy is if you have luck, that he could go off at any time.
You can't.
Yeah, if you're listening to Abe in Southfield,
you can't. Unfortunately, you have to go with the body of work right now. Luck, for whatever reason, he's been having ball control issues over the past couple seasons, and the turnovers were he was up to like 20 plus turnovers last year. He's already had 8 picks and a couple fumbles this year. The way Bortles, like Jason said, their offense is going to be behind most times, so they're going to be throwing the ball. Bortles seems clearly like the better start there.
You think overall Blake Bortles will finish as top 15 quarterback in fantasy this year? Overall,
I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if they're going to be down, they're going to have to throw the ball. So it just makes sense that he finishes like if you're in a 12-team league or 10-team league, could clearly be he easily should be your starter. I mean, it all depends on where you get him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a look at like in my main league. Let's see where Blake Bortles ranks. I mean, I'm imagining he's probably in the top 10.
Yeah, I would think so easily. I mean, because you got some big name quarterbacks who are struggling. Luck, Stafford, Peyton Manning's not even close to being himself right now.
All right, so Blake Bortles right now in my main league, he is ranked number 8, and he's ahead of guys like Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, and Cam Newton. That's are all guys
that's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're talking about a guy who's won a Super Bowl in Russell Wilson and 2
dual threat.
number 1 overall picks.
Yeah,
in Matt Ryan and Cam Newton, who both are really solid at what they do. And Blake Bortles is in this league, he has 11 more points than all of them.
That's crazy. I mean, especially when you think about it, Matt Ryan's got so much talent down there right now. Julio's a beast. Devontae Freeman is playing out of his mind. So you figure that I would figure that Ryan would be at least a top 5 quarterback just because he's got all the options. So, but it goes to show that the situation, it sort of favors Bortles because of like where their defense is ranked.
He's kind of like where Stafford was a few years ago.
Yep.
Where he gets all the garbage yards. A few more possible waiver wire pickups you can look at. Charles Sims, if he's still out there, a running back in Tampa. I'd say that he's probably better served in a PPR league.
Yeah.
Because he's the passing down back. I wouldn't compare him to Theo Riddick, because I think Theo Riddick is clearly just a passing down back.
Yeah.
Charles Sims might give you a few
rushes here and
there.
Few
rushes, but he's proven that he's at least should be rostered. Jalen Strong, he had 2 catches and 2 touchdowns, and they were his first catches of the year.
Yeah.
But they're banged up there in Houston. Nate Washington,
Cecil
Shorts. Both of those guys are banged up, and Strong might become the number 2 guy there.
Like you said, the way Hoyer came in and played, except for that pick last week, I would hope that things turn around to where you can use Strong as like a third option or something in most leagues. DeAndre's just a beast. Like you've got him in one of your leagues. You said,
I do.
Right?
Yeah, he's awesome.
I got super lucky and got him like really, really late. So, but you hope because DeAndre's going to garner some extra attention that Strong can step up and catch a few balls here and there.
Yeah, and one last guy who I don't want you to immediately laugh at me, Zach Zenner.
No, I agree. You know what? Their running game is in such bad shape with Abdullah coughing up those couple balls last week, and Joik's another one that can't hold on to the ball. So Zenner seems like the more between the tackles kind of back, which is what Detroit seems to want to constantly do, but they don't have the right personnel for it.
Yeah, I know. I really feel that Abdullah, the coaches have soured on him, and Caldwell came out this week and said, he's got to earn it. And Bell he might be coming back this week, but he wasn't looking very good. And is he rushing back again? So how good is he going to be? I think Zenner might actually be. Him and Riddick might be the
safer bets in that backfield. Yeah,
which
is
crazy.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that just goes to show like how bad the situation in Detroit is right now. That like we're looking at our third and fourth options to come in and take charge of the offense. So.
And a question we got on Twitter was, what's the worth right now going forward of Golden Tate? One of our Twitter followers had asked him, well, a guy like Golden Tate, you would think a yak machine, a guy that gets a lot of yards after the catch, hasn't been targeted all that much. Fantasy-wise, is he worth a drop?
No way. Golden Tate, you still need to have him on your roster. You can't tell me that there's that many people out there on the waiver wire that are better than Golden
him.
Tate.
Yeah, I mean, just because, unfortunately, his production is down, so is Calvin's. I mean, everybody, any Detroit player, they're not must starts right now, but you still can't drop them. Calvin and Golden got to be held on to because there's possibilities that Detroit's going to get into some garbage time situations where they could pick up some points.
Now, this is a situation I think you guys are looking at potential going forward. But if you've looked at the Lions' offense in the last few weeks, it's gone down where basically the Lions' offense is not getting in the end zone. So if you have Golden Tate on your roster and you know he's only getting you 1 to 5 points a week, he's obviously going to sit on your bench. If you try to move him, what's logical and realistic value for a guy like Tate? Maybe second running back, RB2? What's a realistic value if you want to move him? Because I don't think too many people are going to keep him on an active starting roster right now looking at the Lions offense.
I think it would be tough to move Golden Tate right now because I think he's going to turn it around. I mean, you
guys both think that he's got potential. So don't you think other people in fantasy leagues would think that as well? Maybe give up maybe a Snead or a guy like the backup from KC?
I think Snead, though, you kind of ride him until he becomes so hot where you can get something better than Golden Tate.
Yeah.
Or you're going to ride him until he burns out.
I mean, that's what Breeze does. Breeze finds the hot hand and he rolls with them. I mean, look at what Jimmy Graham turned into, and now look what Jimmy Graham's become. Jimmy Graham's like a fantasy afterthought. Hey, by the way, Doc, don't you have him in our league?
Thanks for reminding me.
So I mean, waiver wire pickups, that's kind of the main way that you're going to try and rebuild your team if you are 0-5, 1-4. The other way that we were talking about is trading. And I do have a trade out there in my one league. So what I'll say about trades is that you're going to have to give up somebody on your roster that you don't want to give up.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm giving up right now Calvin Johnson, Jeremy Hill, and Mike Evans for Eddie Lacy, CJ Anderson, and Alshon Jeffrey. Okay. So I'm giving up a guys who they're still playing, and they may not be giving their best potential, but I think I'm essentially doing it for Eddie Lacy right now.
Yeah.
Because CJ Anderson isn't doing anything.
Nothing at all.
They can't figure out what they're doing in Denver. And the potential of what Alshon Jeffrey can give me.
Yeah. Like I said, with Alshon being out, I mean, some people might be getting a little trigger happy because he hasn't done anything and he's just taking up a spot. So if you're giving him two wideouts, that might be something that he's interested in because he wants some production in that spot.
So like what you did in your trade, we're giving up James Jones.
Yeah, which killed you.
You're going to have to give up a decent player, and you try to get multiple players in hopes that either one or both of them can pay off eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I already, like I said, I already think that did. The fact that I was able to take another player from that trade in Cooks and ship him because the team was loaded at running back and get Chris Ivory. The way the Jets seem to go is that they're going to be pounding the ball, and he's looked awesome this year. I mean, the Jets
can stay healthy.
Yeah, that's like you said. Unfortunately, that's the thing with some of these running backs. Like Arian Foster was a gamble for me to take, but you can't not. I mean, if you can get a hold of him and he just does what he does for a little bit, it can pay such huge dividends.
The last thing that I'll say about trading is don't just throw out bad trades because you're going to piss off a lot of people and you're going to alienate people.
See, the Doc is infamous for making just like he just puts out some of the most asinine stuff. It's like, did you really think that through? What was the response that you were hoping to get by putting this trade out there?
I like the jaw drop response. Jason, your co-host, I threw out a trade, and I'll look it up now in a few minutes when you guys react to this. He said that the trade that I proposed, if I offered that to him, Dennis Farrell would have come to my house and slashed my back tires. So I'm going to look it up while you guys debate. Listen,
and that was
you have to try to improve your team. So you have to find that one person that might not understand totally what you're trying to do, that you're trying to finagle them. But hey, so far so good.
Piss off everybody in return.
Yes.
Like Dennis Farrell, he proposed me Nelson Aguilar for CJ Anderson, which neither of them are doing very good. But the worth of CJ Anderson compared to the worth of Nelson Aguilar, it's very far in between. C.J. Anderson, he might turn it around. Nelson Aguilar, he's he might not play this week.
Yeah.
And he's been awful, which I hate it because that's the guy who I was all behind him. I said that he's going to be the next Odell Beckham Jr. and he's not.
See, that's what happened to me last year. I loaded up on I went bananas in my main league. It's an auction draft. So I got Jeremy Hill. I got Odell Beckham. I got Jordan Matthews. Like, I basically hit like a home run last year, like draft, from the young talent wise. So when Aguilar scared me a little bit because Jordan Matthews I was hoping he was going to be like the clear number one, but he hasn't been producing anywhere near those standards.
I kind of hope the way I saw Aguilar, he looked very good in the combine. He looked solid in the one game in preseason, and I kind of saw him as Jordan Matthews. He had a very good year even with Jeremy Maclin. So I assumed in that same offense that there would be enough for Jordan Matthews and Nelson Aguilar
to go around.
And I mean, that offense is just inept all around.
Yeah.
Okay, so listen to the trade that I proposed. This doesn't look so ridiculous in my eyes, but everyone else thought it was quite ridiculous. I wanted to attain Adrian Peterson and Calvin Johnson, and I wanted to give up from my roster Jameis Winston, Jarvis Landry, and Duke Johnson Jr.
That's so ridiculous. The fact that you included Winston there, and I'm a Florida State guy, and the fact that you included him just shows how ridiculous that offer even is.
So it's essentially Jarvis Landry and who for?
Duke Johnson.
Jarvis Landry and Duke Johnson for AP and Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, I wanted to let go of Winston, Jarvis Landry, and Duke Johnson from my roster, and I wanted to pick up AP and Calvin. I thought that was very fair. I'm giving up 3 guys for 2.
I would drive Dennis for it. I would go pick him up, and he lives far away. I'd go pick him up and drive him to your house so he could slash your tire.
Needless to say, it didn't happen. Vetoed.
Good.
Didn't even get accepted.
It wasn't going to get accepted. I can't believe that you actually thought that was a plausible idea.
To kind of stick on the trade topic, we do have a question from Twitter, and they're asking, should they trade AJ Green and Jonathan Stewart for Eddie Lacy and T.Y. Hilton?
Absolutely not. I don't see how you can give up AJ Green for basically Lacy. I mean, because T.Y., we've talked about how Luck has been struggling. T.Y., along with that, T.Y.'s not been producing as well. So Andy Dalton is playing probably the best football of his career right now. And Jonathan Stewart's the feature back. I know he's not producing much, but I think that the AJ Green, Jonathan Stewart combo, you just can't get rid of right now.
Now, looking at this again, I know when we looked at it, when we mentioned it before the show started, I think both of us were in agreement. Looking at it again, I don't hate it as much because if Eddie Lacy and T.Y. Hilton
turn it around,
if they turn around, if they perform at where we know that they can,
well, then they get the team that ships AJ Green. They get huge return on their investment.
Yeah. So it might not be as crazy as we think it is. And that's what I said with trading is that you're going to have to give up somebody good to try and get that return. So what I would say is that if your team, whoever this is, if you're doing pretty solid right now, I wouldn't mess with a good thing. But if you are, around the 2 and 3 and below that, maybe do that because you're
trying to gamble.
It might blow up in your face, but if they can turn it around. And I really, Eddie Lacy last year, he kind of did the same thing. He started off slow. And then at the end of the year, he was the running back that you wanted to have outside of C.J. Anderson.
Like I said, I mean, I think Lacy's time is going to come. I'm pretty sure the back of their schedule, they face Detroit twice. They face Chicago again. They get Minnesota one more time. So they already face Seattle. They face St. Louis. So I'm not worried about anybody else in the West. Arizona's defense has been playing good, but they've been giving up some rushing yards. So yeah, Eddie should have a chance to turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, they got the Chargers this week. I see good stuff for Eddie Lacy because there really isn't anybody in Green Bay to challenge him.
Yeah.
Unlike a Jeremy Hill where Giovanni Bernard, he's looking like the top guy.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at some injuries going around the league that might affect you this weekend. Just going down alphabetical order. John Brown, hamstring. He didn't practice Wednesday, but he's probably looking good to go.
Okay.
So who's he going up against?
Well,
Cardinals.
Arizona's playing at Pittsburgh, so I was talking with on the first podcast, anybody against Pittsburgh right now in general, you want to have Pittsburgh players. Well, you wanted to, and then you want to have anybody going against them.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons in the FanDuel last week that I took Rivers and Gates, because they have nothing in the secondary.
Yeah.
And I think John Brown is that deep threat. You saw what he did against Detroit. He had that one long, deep 45-yard catch. I think he can do the same thing against the Steelers.
Oh, absolutely.
No Troy Polamalu there anymore.
Yeah.
Justin Forsett, as we mentioned earlier, ankle, didn't practice, but you got to watch him. He might play.
Yeah.
But in case he doesn't, go try and snag Javarius Allen. Steve Smith, another guy, he ran at full speed, but they're saying that he had issues making moves and slowing down.
Well, if he can't come out of his cuts or do what he needs to do, they've got enough to cover him for right now, for at least one more week. I mean, unfortunately, they're 1-4, so I wouldn't want to. I'm not trying to rush him back if he's not 100%.
Yeah, I think Kamar. I mean, we talked about it earlier. Kamar Aiken, he's the guy that you want to have in your league. We got a bunch of Bills news. LaShawn McCoy with his hamstring, he is making progress, but even if he is active for this week, and I think it's going to be a game time decision, I don't think he's going to be at full speed, and I definitely think that they'd have him on some sort of snap count.
Yeah, you got to use caution. I mean, you probably started him a few weeks ago when he was back, and he hasn't been producing what he needs to. What's going on with Carlos Williams? Has he been cleared yet or no?
I don't think he's practiced yet.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard for him to come in with just Friday to play on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. So unfortunately, Anthony Dixon didn't do much last week. And yeah, Williams was not at practice today. So, I mean, is it worth starting any running back there? Because then they have Boom Herron too.
Yeah. The way that Dixon played last week, I'm not really too sold on starting anybody in that backfield.
I mean, that offense could be hurting this week, because if you're relying on Boobie Dixon and Boom Herron, which it's weird that they have two running backs who have very odd nicknames for their first names. Tyrod Taylor with his knee. This podcast comes out on Friday. Check on Friday to see what his status is, because I think he's been at practice, but I don't think Rex Ryan wants to rush him back.
Yeah.
EJ Manuel has still taken all the snaps, which I think it's bad news. Bad news for that offense.
Oh, yeah.
Sammy Watkins, he's saying that he wants to play. And again, though, Rex Ryan, it's not his decision if he's going to play or not. So you're looking at Percy Harvin as your main wide receiver, Robert Woods if he's still there.
Yeah.
And
Charles, I guess the only bonus out of that whole situation is that if you've got Charles Clay, you should be a pretty happy camper right about now.
Yeah, but if EJ Manuel's the quarterback, I have no faith in that offense at all. I mean, they're going up against the Bengals, which is a solid offense and defense, and it's going to be bad news.
Maybe this is the week that Jeremy Hill can turn it around then, because the Buffalo offense is so banged up that maybe he can sneak some points in there for you.
Yeah, we can only hope. Alshon Jeffrey and Eddie Royal both practiced today, and you got to watch their statuses. Because Jeffrey, it seems like he's been on the verge of being back every week.
But yeah, they shut him down.
So definitely watch those. And if either of those guys play, it might cut into the Marcus Wilson value.
Yeah,
because I think he was the hot pickup last week, and if you did, he paid off for you. But I think going up against the Lions, even if one of those guys play, he's going to be a solid play for you.
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, Detroit's just like bleeding in all spots, so you're probably going all out with anybody against Detroit.
Yeah, unfortunately. You always have those teams where you always start the guys against them. It's always been the Browns and the Jacksonville Jaguars. You start them against them. But it's slowly becoming the Lions now. Last week I had John Brown.
Oh yeah, I had Carson Palmer. I was like salivating. I was very irritated that they got up so big and then he got benched at the end of the third quarter. So
Isaiah Crowell, he's has a toe injury. He was limited at practice. I think if he even comes back, it's gonna be limited time, and it could mean more work for Duke Johnson.
Do you think people own Duke Johnson already? Or
I would hope so, because I think Duke Johnson, the past 2 weeks he's been a pretty solid PPR play, and that is really where Duke Johnson's value was. And what was, Doc? Do you remember what the question was? I know it was Duke Johnson and who else was it? Duke Johnson, Theo Riddick, and another person for a running back.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Well, whatever it was, it's hard to. It was a non PPR league, which all of them were. They're not very good non PPR plays.
Yeah.
But Duke Johnson was probably the better play there.
Well, speaking of Duke Johnson, I got a question for him on my league this week. So Marshawn Lynch